Hello, my fellow readers. This is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fan fiction review. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications. Leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the video and any future fan fictions you want me to read or review. Join my Discord. I'll have a link to that in the description as well for updates and any time you want to talk or just hang out with other fans, stuff like that. And finally, this is my opinion of the story. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, a while ago, I reviewed a story called The Mole Trader Abroad. It was a very good story. I actually really liked it. It just had a lot of niggling pains that kind of caught up to it, mostly due to a really lot of small stuff overall. But I did like the story. I did think it was very good. This time, we're talking about the sequel. Yes, we're going back to The Mole. Chris Etcher's The Mole, not Trader Abroad. Saboteur's Island is the sequel to Trader Abroad. And what I really like about the story is how it improves on The Mole. The story that he established in Trader Abroad and improving on it and polishing it. This is basically just, you take all the little problems with The Mole from Trader Abroad, you polish them, and you get this. There's nothing really wrong with it outside of some two little things, like two very, very minor things. We'll talk about those when we talk about those. So let's get started. So what is the plot? The plot is basically just like Trader Abroad. No surprise there. For those of you who didn't watch that video and just wanting to catch up, this story is based off hit TV show The Mole. It's aired internationally at this point. I don't know if there's any new seasons or if there's ever going to be a reboot. I don't know, who knows. Basically, the format goes like this. There are 10 players. 9 of them are competing in challenges to earn a sum of cash to go to a pot that goes eventually to the winner. However, the 10th player is the Mole, someone who was hired by the backstage crew to sabotage the crew, the other players, to prevent them from getting money. And so the whole point of the show is basically just find out who the Mole is. And whoever knows the least amount of moles, who the Mole is after the challenge, all the challenges end, gets eliminated, and then, we eventually come to the final 3, the winner, the final victim, and the Mole. I like this story much more than Trader Abroad, mainly because of how the author kind of uses the idea of topography, and the challenges are much more confusing and also much more entertaining. They have better characters, but we'll get into that when it gets to that. But the biggest thing with the plot is how the author uses location as a way for us to better understand what's going on. Because in Trader Abroad, one of my very, very few complaints was we didn't really know where they were going except for like a quick stop at Rogueport. That's literally the only thing we knew that we were familiar with, so we kind of knew where they were walking, where they were talking. It's like we didn't understand the locations at all. It's like, okay, what's this sound? Where are they at? Where are they at? We need to know where they're at. This story, however, takes place exclusively on Isle Delfino. You know, the island that's shaped like a dolphin from Super Mario Sunshine? That place. The entire season / story takes place on this one area, with challenges taking place at various locations across the island. So every single location that was present in Super Mario Sunshine, with the exception of Corona Mountain, although Corona Mountain is mentioned, is shown at least once in terms of a challenge. We start from the first challenge actually takes place at the airport. Involves the Delfino airport that kind of lands the planes every place. And then they get swum up to Delfino Plaza, and then they're gone up to every single place, ending with the final challenge being taking place at Siena Beach, aka Hotel Delfino. So getting from the plane trip to to Siena Beach is actually a really, really enjoyable joyride, because we don't know. Unlike the original story, we don't know who the Mole is. I'm going to actually kind of spoil it a little bit later, so I'll forewarn everyone that. we know who the mole is. We don't know who the mole is. Everything is much more cryptic in terms of the plot because the author and actually learned his lesson from the previous one and kind of made it less obvious who the mole is. Or if he did, he used a lot of misdirection by using clues that kind of reference more than one player. There are 10 players in this story, unlike the previous 9, mainly because normally there's 10 players in a season rather than 9, and the author also forgot some journals. The author made the characters much more dynamic. There's also in terms of the plot, there's a different dynamic between the characters in season 1 than season 2. In season 1, they kind of all became a big family group right from the get-go, who kind of didn't trust each other because they wanted to play the game right. But ultimately, they all kind of became one big happy family that they're okay with just hanging out and goofing off. The dynamic of season 2 is actually much more Reaganigus. I completely blustered that word. Disparaging, so to speak. We have 10 characters, but they all don't really get along that well. I mean, they do get along near the end. Like, once it reaches the halfway point, they do argue much more often, and they're more prone to, like, blaming the others. So it's a much different dynamic than, like, a whole family, the whole family mentality in season 1, where they became one big group of friends. Well, this one, they want to win, with the exception of maybe like 1 or 2 characters. So it's a different dynamic. Halibu's there, so yeah, that's and the final part that kind of makes it different from the first one in terms of plot is the use of continuity, constantly having kind of referencing there's actual cameos from the final 3 of Traitor Abroad and there's also uses of the clues in. I'm not joking. The author went out of his way, and I'm assuming Chris Etchers is a guy. I think he's a guy. I believe in his profile page he says he's a guy. Don't quote me on that. The author went above and beyond, actually creating a website, like I said, a little website just for this story, which is completely amazing. Actually created a YouTube channel to leave clues, all with the purpose of leaving clues, and also making actual pages, like JPEG pages on PhotoBucket. Now, this is where I kind of get to complain a little bit, mainly because this was one thing completely out of the author's control. All the pictures that he made were on PhotoBucket. However, PhotoBucket changed policies, which made it all but impossible to find these stories, combined with FanFiction not really allowing links on the author's pages anymore. You have to go literally out of your way, like, slowly add everything. It's a really complicated process. I think they need to bring it back. But it's now become impossible to actually find the pictures from Saboteur's Island. The sequel, Agent Elevation, he learned from those mistakes and Saboteur's Island, and put the picture clues in that website as well. The fact that the author, the author went out of his way to do all these little bells and whistles just to make it as immersive as possible, completely amazing. I also want to throw a quick shout out to Princess Toadie, another author who writes the mole stories, who was actually inspired by Chris Etchers, for helping me, even like a little bit. You have props for at least helping me try and find it. Despite the fact, you couldn't come up with anything too. I at least deserve to at least mention you. And who knows, maybe someday I may read one of your mole stories. Foreshadowing? So, anyway, that's it with the plot. I really like the changing of the plot, making it incredibly more immersive, like making it a genuine experience to read through rather than just, reading it at all. Then we get to the 10 players. First off, we have Halibu. He's a mysterious host who just constantly be cryptic and tries to throw shade at everyone, saying, "Hey, could you be the mole? Maybe you're the mole. Maybe you're the mole. Haha. I'm smart. Like, he's just a host, so he's as basic as basic can get. Then you have the 10 characters. You have Boo, Rosalina, Rosalina. Who's the next one? 1 second. Got it. Boo, Rosalina, Wendy, Diddy, Bobbery, Goombella, Lovey, Wario, Vivian, and Yoshi. Those are the 10 characters. And going back to the dynamic, they have more dynamic personalities. Another complaint I had with Trader Abroad is a simple fact. A lot of the characters in that story kind of behave the same way. They didn't have really concrete personalities. They weren't really three-dimensional. So it was very hard to root for one character or another. In this story, you have a more variable amount of personalities. You have Wario being the grumpy guy. I was like, I want the money. Yeah, I want the money. He literally just wants the money. He's Wario. You have Wendy, who's the spoiled rich girl who grows to be independent. Boo's like the suave guy who saw the previous season of the game, so he kind of knows all what's happening and kind of tries to figure out the clues. Vivian, who's basically the shy girl who doesn't really have a lot of self-confidence. Yoshi, the average Joe. Lovey, the kind of the quiet, kind of the mysterious one who kind of makes things cryptic. Goombella, who's like the smart one. Bobbery plays the team dad, and you have like Diddy, who's basically just the leader, the self-appointed leader, who constantly, kind of likes to be ridiculous and over the top, stuff like that. And then you have Rosalina, who's basically just there. I'm sorry, I couldn't really nail Rosalina's personality. Now, for the purpose of the story, I'm not gonna mention where they ended up at, like in specific areas. Whenever I talk about like how far they got, I gotta try and be as big as possible to try and say, okay, read the story. I don't want to spoil it for you. I really don't want to spoil the story for you. Let me just shadow on that. Sorry, I was just pulling on something. So all these characters, they have a very different dynamic. They're more antagonistic towards each other. They believe each other, but they're so untrusting because of the fact they want to figure out on their own. Like, you have Wario, who pretty much becomes a loner, like at the beginning of the story. I'm not telling you how far he makes it. You have, Wendy kind of becoming more independent as the story goes on. You have all these dynamic personalities who you actually start to like and grow on over the course of the story, and you just want to see your favorite character win. It's like, I like this character, I want him to win, or I want her to win. Yeah. And so we kind of see the characters more as bland personalities and more as actual characters, unlike Trader Abroad. There is a one hilarious other problem. The other problem I'm about to talk about right now has to do with the grammar. Now, I don't know if anyone ever told the author this, but I kid you not, for some reason, in the story, the author kind of made it a habit to kind of imaginarily picture Lovey with feet. Now, if you don't know who Lovey is basically just a spirit from Super Paper Mario. She has wings for arms. She's basically just a circle, a triangle, and like 2 wings for arms. And that is it. That is it. And for some reason, the author constantly mentions, oh, she steps her feet in the sand. Like, but she doesn't have feet! How can she walk and get sand in her feet if she doesn't have feet? How can... Just why? Just why? And I have a dog staring at me because I'm talking about feet for some reason. And it's not just that. It's the same thing with Vivian. Vivian is a shadow siren. She basically has one tendril. She technically has a foot, but the author makes it sound like she has feet. yet that's physically impossible. Sure, I kind of know where they're coming from. Still doesn't make it any less ridiculous that the author constantly mentions that Lovey has feet. But overall, the story, it's just really, it's just a nitpick because I just found it so hilarious when I read it for the first time, and there's like a sentence that Lovey stepped on the sand trying to avoid getting her sand stuck on her feet. It's like, wait. I'm like, wait. She doesn't have feet. She doesn't. She doesn't have feet. How can she get sand in her feet if she doesn't have feet? She doesn't have feet. She doesn't have ankles. She doesn't have legs. She's basically just a circle on top of a triangle and some wings. Why? That's not a thing. Unless you humanized her, unless you anthropomorphized her. Like, I was like, okay, then that I'll understand. But you basically made all the other characters like themselves. It's like you made Yoshi. You made Yoshi. So it's all confusing, but it's also hilarious. Pacing. The pacing actually very tight. Just like Trader Abroad, that's what I praise it most for. In terms of the challenges, they kind of make things as tense as possible. And the clues layered around makes you question, like, who's this talking about? What's this talking about? What's this? What's this? And honestly makes you question what is actually a clue towards the mole's identity or not. Now, for the purposes of this... No, I'll leave it for a favorite part. With everything from the beginning to the end. Like, the first mission is basically, like, in the first mission of Trader Abroad, they jump off a cliff. The first mission of Season 2, they jump off a plane and onto the ocean near Delfino Airport to get interviewed and stuff like that. Now, I actually really, really like everything that's happened. The clues were more cryptic, like you had to really think about it, and the challenges were much better written. They were much better structured because some of the missions in Season 1, they were like, okay, there were some that was good, but then there was some less like, but that came more down due to the characters themselves kind of being very bland in Trader Abroad. But we have better written characters. We have more dynamic personalities in the story, allowing us to get a better feel for the challenges and allowing the pacing to kind of give us more time to understand their characters. Like, it's like now, but unlike last time, the motivations for the challenge are very different from this season. In Trader Abroad, they just wanted to go on a vacation. They just wanted to go on the adventure and enjoy themselves and stuff like this. While in Season 2, they wanted the money. So it gave us a better dynamic that actually helped with the pacing as much as it could. It kind of made it better in pacing overall. It's like, well, if they're fighting over money, that kind of gives us better motivations for better characters, allowing the pacing to breathe more organically, to allowing these personalities more. Like, there's more talking in this story than there is in this part than in the previous part. Like, not to mention, there's more deceptive practices. Like, at the end of the story, one of the characters reveals that they purposely sabotaged everything that happened just so they could try and eliminate other players. Because they kind of already knew who the mole was. They would just want to get the stronger competition out of the way so they have an easier time winning. Which didn't really happen in Trader Abroad. They were just trying to play... The only one who was trying to do that was the mole in that story. And, in that story, that was the mole's job. And the same thing with the runner-up. They believed... they try to do it. Sorry, I'm actually recording stuff. Uh, and it has a lot of neat little details into it that kind of helps, like the pacing. There's more dynamic missions that they kind of have that introduces more dynamic stuff. There are lots of red herrings that help with the pacing. So we kind of get introduced with the whole idea that who honestly is the mole in this situation. And finally with the pacing, and allow the story the unlike last time, the challenges themselves are better paced. But again, that's due to the better personalities. So now, I honestly think I kind of repeated myself in that part. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm sorry. Now, favorite part, would I recommend it, and final thoughts. Would I recommend the story? Yes, I would recommend the story, just like I recommended Trader Abroad. Now, do I think this is better than Trader Abroad? Yes. 1,000 times yes. Everything about the story is much, much better. However, it still has the caveat of being a very one-and-done story, because once you figure out who the mole is, there's really no reason to come back to the story. It's a very, very Dick Jomic idea. It's a good one-time story, but once you read it that one time, then you pretty much spoil yourself. Like, you can't read it again, because then you automatically know who's the mole, who's gonna win, what happened, and it kind of loses its charm. When I went through the story the second time for the review, I knew who the mole was, I knew who won, so it kind of spoiled it for me. But it was more palpable than Trader Abroad, mainly for the fact that I didn't take as long. It took super fast to figure out who the mole in Trader Abroad was than it was here. I didn't know who the mole was until right there at the very, very end of the game, like near the last mission or two. Around, I would have to say, if you ask me what specific part kind of clued me in on the who the mole was, the second story, I would have to say the first mission. I believe it was the. It would have been the casino challenge, like the penultimate challenge in the entire game. That was kind of when I clued in. But, and even then, I just took a wild guess, because I kind of knew I kind of knew, based on my favorite part, kind of knew who was going to win, but I didn't know who was the runner-up and who was the mole. So I just really took a wild guess over who the mole was in that case, unlike in Trader Abroad, where I kind of immediately knew who the mole was like that, which aids in the fact that the author used more red herrings and more misdirections by having all the clues, like all the visual clues, kind of point towards multiple characters. So, there's multiple clues, so that lead to multiple characters. So you kind of made it hard to figure out which one the author was talking about, or a simple misdirection. Now, favorite part. I was stuck between two challenges for the story. It was the Sacred Pot Challenge and the Escape from Hotel Delfino Challenge. And I was really, really kind of tense over which one I should give. I ultimately decided to go with the Sacred Pot Challenge, slightly ahead of Escape from Hotel Delfino. Now, the Sacred Pot Challenge is the final challenge of episode 7. It was down to the 4 contestants. I really preferred over Escape, simply because of the challenge, but more the setup behind it and the decision one of the characters made. It was this challenge in particular that kind of made me figure out who was going to win the entire thing. So let me set things up with how I kind of figure out the mole, because the mole kind of shows up in this challenge. Well, not this mole, the last mole. So let me forewarn you, I will be leaving a timestamp to the part where I start talking about the actual challenge itself. So that way you can skip ahead. Just pause it right here. Go to the comment section below and click on the thing. It'll lead you right to where I start talking about the challenge itself. Now, in order to understand this, you have to figure out who the mole was in Trader Abroad, because there's going to be spoilers here. The Toadette from Trader Abroad was the mole. I actually figured her out really, really easy. I actually figured out like really early, like about episode 2. Yeah, like really, really, like within the first 10 chapters. I really figured it out. What gave it away was, starting from the second character being eliminated, they were taken to a cab, and the cab had a symbol of a pole with 2 snakes wrapping around it. And I was like, when I first read that story, I'm like, wait, I know, and I'm thinking, I know I've seen that before, but I just can't remember where. So I actually got curious, pulled up a new tab, typed in the description like a pole with 2 snakes wrapping around it, and I got a caduceus, how you want to pronounce it. And I was like, it's Toadette. It's obviously Toadette. And so I actually reread the first couple of chapters just so I can go in from that angle. I said, okay, I know it's Toadette now. And I try to figure out every single clue. It's like, how does that work into Toadette being the mole? Of course, at the end, it turns out Toadette was the mole. Sorry about that. I'm getting distracted. Hey, stop! And so that kind of made it obvious, who was the mole, how did everything figure out. So going into this story, we have the final 4 contestants. They enter Noki Bay and go in, and they meet Toadette. He's like, and then the host, McAliboo, describes the challenge. It's as thus: the sacred pot. There is a pot in one of the crevices, little caves of Noki Bay, containing about 10,000 gold. The 4 contestants must protect the pot from being broken, because an intruder is going to try and break the pot and steal what's the 10,000. If they manage to do this, they get 40,000 coins. So before that, Toadette leaves them a gift to continue the entire first season of Trader Abroad, which is a neat little bit of continuity. I actually really like that. And so McAliboo tells the 4 contestants, you don't have to watch the entire first season all through the night. And so they do. And so they slowly leave one by one until there's 1 contestant left, who leaves at 5:08 in the morning. And so they have a full day to get prepared, which is where McAliboo tells them the challenges and tells them, it's going to happen at night. You got to stay the whole night to protect it. So there you go. So they enter the cave where the pot is, and they start protecting. And they start protecting it, like being ward for a little bit. So it's like, all right. One of the contestants start breaking pots. Like, there has to be something in here. There has to be something. And so he finds like little light guns. McAliboo tells them before everything happens. 1, you'll know who the intruder is by the white light. And 2, don't believe what the intruder says. Believe everything the opposite. About an hour past midnight, a voice comes down from a speaker saying, "I'm the intruder. You cannot stop me." Blah, 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 and puts up the first of 3 mini challenges. There are 4 poles. You stand up the pole, you survive. One of them is stupid enough to get on the pole, gets stuck, kind of gets dragged away. Alright. So then the second mini challenge a little bit later, saying, okay, there's a +1 for outside. go and get it, but you're not going to be able to enter the cave. Another characters leave because they were so upset, trying to figure out, it's the final four. I don't want to risk not getting into the finals, and leaves, just leaving 2 contestants. And then we get the final mini challenge, where the intruder drops a bunch of pictures onto the ground, saying, "Try and find the one that doesn't belong and destroy it. And if not, one of you goes bye-bye." And so what happens? They start trying to find the picture, but they find the picture, and one of the characters, starts getting dragged away, but the other player rips it just in time, and then you're like, okay, it's just you and me protecting this pot, and then the other characters, no, it's just you. And then the other player reveals that they're the intruder, and explains this thusly. When this character was the last one still watching, they were offered a second mission from the host. Their job is to break the pot. If they break the pot, they get the final exemption in the game. The exemption is basically a free pass to the next round. And the player can take as much of the 10,000 as they want. So that leaves a bit of a conundrum. What is the character going to do? Ultimately, the character decides to let the other player shoot him. Now, the reason behind that is, this is the reason why I wanted this character to win. The player did not want the exemption because they wanted to earn it. They wanted to earn their place in the finals. They wanted to earn that win, and felt taking an exemption right at the end was a coward's way out, was just a cop-out. And it was pure evil and does not deserve and does not want it. And so the intruder actually lets the other player shoot him. And I'm like, yeah, that person's winning. It's winning. It's winning. And then that player, I was actually proven right. That player actually ended up winning the whole thing. Good going, player 10. Good going, player 10. So, that's the Sacred Pot Challenge. I really like that challenge, the execution, the setup. Everything about that challenge was done perfectly. A close second, again, was Escape from Hotel Delfino. That was another very tense, stressful challenge that I really, really liked because of the creativity behind it. So, the final thoughts. Now that I think about it, this, Better Off Alone, and Kingdom Beyond Midnight are my 3 favorite Mario stories. I don't know. There's some kind of reasoning behind it. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why, but there's some reason I really, really do like the story as well as the other stories. I don't know. It's probably some kind of plot inconvenience or something. I can't remember. I don't seem to realize it. So, that leaves us in a bit of conundrum for the final story in the Mole series. For Chris Etchers, anyway. Agent's Elevation. Now, I actually do want to review the story. The problem is, the story is not technically complete. What I mean by that is the final couple of chapters are not there. However, the main bulk of the story, that means the main season, is finished. It's written and everything. We know I'm pretty sure, based on what I read, we know who the mole. It showed the part where the mole won. The only thing that's missing was the acts of sabotage the mole did throughout the story. So, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's why I'm going to ask you, the commenters, my fellow readers, should I do a review of Agent's Elevation? I don't know, to be honest. So, comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of, should I review that story? As well as, let's have fun. Who do you think the mole is? As well as, how did you find out who the mole was at any point in the story? And again, it took me like near the end to figure it out, but again, that was just a guess. That's literally all I have. That is my review on the mole, Saboteur's Island. I really love this story. Once again, I thank Princess Toadie for helping me out even a little bit. And that is everything. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and